Committee on Intelligence, Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. He was part of that Democratic conference call yesterday in which House Speaker Nancy Pelosi pushed back on growing calls to impeach President Trump. Congressman, thanks for taking some time with us this morning. We appreciate it. Characterize, if you could, the message that Nancy Pelosi gave you all yesterday. We've seen the reporting in the media, but you were on the phone. What'd she say?
Well, thanks for having me on Morning Morning Joe. I have to say, it was a rather cordial conference call. It was long. There's definitely differences of opinion on the ultimate question of impeachment, but I have to say there was a consensus opinion on exactly what we should do next in terms of concrete investigative steps. First, bringing Mueller on the Hill to testify about the report, and then second, getting a full unredacted version of the report. As you know, there are about 1,000 redactions. 80% of them are in Volume 1 with regard to Russian interference in our democracy. And of the 14 matters that were transferred to other jurisdictions, 11 are completely blacked out. So there are a lot of questions about what other wrongdoing has been discovered and where do we go from here.
Do you agree, though, Congressman, with Speaker Pelosi that the conversation or the investigations may end up at impeachment, but that you all shouldn't lead with the idea of impeachment as pursuing that goal, but maybe arriving at that goal?
Yes, I do. I think that, I had a modest role as a prosecutor here in Illinois, and the one thing I learned is you got to investigate and then prosecute, and there's still a lot of investigation to go, despite the fact that Mueller has laid out an enormous set of facts in this report. And so I think we have to take those next steps before we arrive at the ultimate decision about impeachment.
As a prosecutor, did you see impeachable offenses in the Mueller report?
Well, I think if you look at the obstruction section, clearly, Mr. Mueller laid out at least 10 or a dozen instances where Mr. Trump tried to influence the outcome of the investigation or shut it down completely. One of the most notable examples was with Mr. McGahn, where he basically called him at home at least twice and told him to just fire Special Counsel Mueller. Interestingly, he also kind of chastised Mr. McGahn for taking notes about all of these conversations.
Right.
And at one point, he said, my lawyers haven't taken notes, such as Mr. Cohen, Roy Cohen.
Right.
And Mr. McGahn said, I'm a real lawyer. I take notes.
But is that impeachable, Congressman?
Potentially. I think we have to get to what is the corrupt, whether there's a corrupt intent behind those moves. I think there's strong circumstantial evidence that would support that finding. But that's in part what I think we're going to be asking Mr. Mueller when he comes to Capitol Hill as well.
Congressman, it's Casey Hunt. Is there a point where, it's a phrase I can't really use on television, but do Democrats have to make a decision one way or the other about impeachment being on or off the table? And at what point, we were waiting for the Mueller report. We have the Mueller report. Now there's testimony from Barr and Mueller. I get you guys are waiting for that. But once we have that, are you just going to stretch this all the way out to the 2020 election?
Well, I think I know what phrase you're referring to, but I think that, I think, quite frankly, right now, we're just faced with the immediate next steps and questions, and it's not really clear, for instance, that we're going to get the full unredacted report immediately. And so kind of focusing on that and bringing all of our committees on board to pursue that is really important. I think ultimately that next step, that question that you talk about, will be confronted. But right now, I think we're all in agreement that at least let's take these next steps since we're agreed on that.
All right, Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, thank you so much.